and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm joined today by the founder of Lucan Wealth Management, Greg Lucan. He began developing math-based investment solutions for clients in the early 1990s. For nearly 4 decades, he has been working primarily with first-generation wealthy men and women who have built their own wealth from nothing. It is in this experience that inspired his new book, Unleash Your Financial Superpowers: How the First Generation Wealthy Do It and How You Can Too. Thanks for joining me, Greg.
Great. Great to be with you, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Greg, our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today we're going to talk about unlocking your 3 key financial superpowers, among other things. Are you ready?
Sounds great. Sounds great.
All right. So we're your book is obviously about it's focused on this first generation wealthy, but I was wondering if you could define what wealth is.
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think most people would have some variation of it. Most of the people we work with define it as the ability to do what they want to do. I have enough money so that I'm not worried about running out of it. I can do what I want to do. And most people get to when they live in what we call a post-budget world, where they're not having to watch every dime or every penny. There's just things that they do, and they've always spent below their income. So they've gotten to the point where their wealth is sufficient to make sure that they can continue doing that. So they continue doing the things that they're really passionate about doing.
Post budget world. I love it. What are some ways that you're seeing people are becoming first generation wealthy? What are they investing in? What are they doing?
Yeah, that's a we get that question a lot, and the reality is it's not very sexy. There is this idea that, well, if I just invent something, an app or software, and all of a sudden overnight, then I become this millionaire. The reality is about 79% of millionaires are first generation wealth. They inherited zero, and the majority of their wealth came from consistent investing over time, including in their retirement plan, whether that be with their own company, whether they're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or whether they work for someone else, getting a W-2. It is that consistency over time.
A lot of people would be surprised by that. And I think they think most millionaires inherited money. And I think it's a little bit of a self-preservation attitude that people have, because then they think, well, I didn't inherit any money, so I'm not going to be rich. And then it kind of gives them the ability to cop out a little bit.
Yeah, the really interesting thing when you start digging into it is, as you look at the research and even anecdotally, you see that it's really uh, that people they have a mindset where they are consistently doing the things that contribute to being wealthy. And some people make the distinction that rich is when you show it, and wealth really is that store of riches. So I've got plenty built up in the storehouse. So regardless of what comes along, I've got the wherewithal to withstand it. And the reality is, it usually just takes time.
So what's the difference between like first generation wealthy and second generation wealthy?
What we see as the big difference, and you've seen these statistics, that by the time the second generation gets a hold of it, 70% of the wealth is gone. Because Not because of a lack of intelligence. It's really a lack of what were those habits that were formed to get there. And what we see is first generation wealthy tend to come from a place where they were hungry, and you can't manufacture hunger. You can't manufacture that hunger. And you talk to the first generation wealthy, and I was at a group with entrepreneurs sitting around a table last week, and there were 12 of them, and how many had the same story? And their story was, I can't believe that I'm the only one who took out a not only a first, but a second mortgage on my house in order to make payroll. And people talking about, what that means when you have had that experience where, you know, you're all in. You put your chips on the table and you just have to make it work. And that experience of I had people working for me and they were getting paid more than me running my company. And I think that's really that kind of hunger and those kind of hard knocks are really hard to manufacture. And then I think what happens a lot of times, and we see it with our first generation wealthy clients, they want to make life easier for their kids because we care about them. And sometimes what we see is they are deprived of those hard lessons, and those hard lessons, whether you call it stupid tax or tuition, whatever that is, uh that's hard to come by. And I don't know how you if we figure out the secret formula to bypass that, I'll be sure and make you one of my first calls.
The first generation wealthy, I think we tend to think that if we just had the leg up, we would be so much further ahead than we even are. And then what I see is people try to give that to the next generation, and it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, it's really hard to manufacture that hunger.
So in your book, you talk about these three key financial superpowers. What are they?
Yes. Uh, the three superpowers are the power of purpose, the power of plan, and the power of execution. And the way they came about was we noticed consistently that the three main reasons for financial failure was the lack of a clear, compelling, magnetic, forceful, um, uh, deep why, that real sense of purpose. Number two was the lack of a clear, concise, step by step, concrete plan of action. And number three was that lack of the discipline to execute because things get hard. We're all human. We all fall off the wagon, and we need that power of purpose to get us back on to where we dust ourselves off and get going again. But having some process in place so that we are able to consistently execute, that we have that power of plan to alleviate us from having the energy draining exercise of cognition, of having to make decisions in the moment. It's so much easier when there's a game plan, and that power of purpose really keeps us on track.
So tell me more about the power of purpose.
I believe that everyone knows their purpose, and I make the analogy, it's like a big block of marble. The beautiful statue is already in there. All you have to do is get rid of the other stuff. So at the end of the day, or when things get hard, and they inevitably will, what is it? What is that North Star? What is that thing that is a tractor beam, that thing that is going to draw me? And for a lot of people, it has something to do with their family, their faith, their friends, their what they see as their purpose in the world, and having real clarity about that. I don't mean just this, well, yeah, I want to do. No, it's what is that thing that makes you want to run through brick walls? And when you get it down to that, it makes the decision so easy because you have that clarity of purpose. And it's so much easier to say no. There's so many things that are easy to say yes to with our calendars and with our wallets. And when we have that clarity about that why. Lauren, I think about there was an old show. I haven't seen it in years. I don't know if it's on anymore, but The Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and one of the things that struck me about that was at the beginning of the season, they would have, well, why do you want to lose all this weight? And I didn't see every show, so I can't say that no one ever said this, but the ones I saw, nobody ever said, because I want to have a, Charles Atlas body and, be the envy of everybody at the beach. It was usually, hey, I want to be healthy enough to be alive to walk my daughter down the aisle. My wife deserves this. My husband deserves this. I want to do this for them. I want to be healthy so that I'm around. And they usually got really emotional about it. So it makes good TV. But the reality is they're getting emotional about it because it's getting at the core of their purpose, what's really important. And when you're able to put the first things first, the other things will fall into place. And it's easier, when life shows up as it inevitably does and gets hard, it's easier to make those hard decisions when you're really clear about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so when you're on The Biggest Loser and you're a week or two in and you're having those cravings or you don't feel like doing that exercise, you've got to get back to that purpose to make you do those things.
Right, right. That's that North Star, that, magnetic force.
So what about the power of plan?
The power of plan, a great analogy is going to the gym and going to the gym and saying, well, I'm going to exercise has some benefit. But going to the gym and saying, here is my workout plan, whether it's on an app or I'm doing a class or I'm working out with someone, and here is our routine, knowing ahead of time exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing 10 reps, 3 sets. Knowing that is so much more effective for so many people, including me, because otherwise I get to the gym and I say, I already did 10 push-ups. I'll do a couple more, but I'm kind of tired today. And it's easy to cop out, or having to figure out in the moment, what should I do next, takes a lot of brain power. And our brains look for shortcuts all the time, right? You go to Starbucks and you get whatever you get, a double macchiato or a soy latte, and you make that decision one time and then it's just a habit. You're not having to make that decision again because that's what you get. And and it's like that with our decisions about money. If we can take that energy drain out of the equation, our brains are very greedy organs. They consume, by some estimates, 20-25% of our body's energy, and yet, make up less than 5% of our body mass. So it consumes a lot of energy to make decisions. So when you have a step-by-step game plan, you don't have to think about it anymore. It's just, yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I can get into decision fatigue if I'm like planning for a party or something. It's like, okay, I've got to buy this food. I've got to do this. What should I do? Should I get fresh flowers? Should I clean? Or should I hire the maid this week? What should I decorate with? What should I order? And you could get to the point where you are just like fatigued out. And so that's just my most recent example of a time where I'm like, I remember asking my husband, I'm like, can you make this decision? I can't even do it anymore.
Right.
And if you can get your money to that point, then it does become so much easier. But getting set up, I guess, could be kind of hard. I guess people probably do they when they're getting on the plan, are they faced with some of these decision fatigue?
Sometimes they are. The what we see a lot of times with first generation wealthy is they've already made these decisions. They're already on track. They just don't have clarity about exactly where they are, exactly. They know vaguely where they're going. They have an idea. Again, that purpose is already in there. It's not a matter of making it up. It's just a matter of getting rid of the other stuff that is clouding it. And sometimes there's a little adjustment, but it's usually pretty seamless. The challenge sometimes becomes you talk about decision fatigue, and what a great term. You can end up with decision fatigue and, hey, I just don't want to make a decision. And that's where that power of execution. What happens when I'm too fatigued to make that decision? And what if I get off track? Is there a process to get me back on track? And that is the key. We at our house we deal with that with eating all the time. And you blow it one day and you go, you get up the next day and you go, well, I blew it yesterday. And because of that, I feel like blowing it again today. But every day we look at it as today's a new reset. And so just having that, having some process in place so that you can get back on plan is really key.
I was wondering if a plan ever means permission too. Like it's okay for you to maybe have, if we're going to stick with the dieting thing, like can you have a cheat day? I mean, does it ever mean like maybe you can do more than you even thought you could?
I think the reality is that's what we do, right? And so few of us, I use the term post-budget world. So few of us, in my experience, or at least people I know, you may know different people. So few people have a budget and stick to the budget. It's really those are kind of guidelines to help us, and we end up playing tricks. I mean, we do it to this day. We don't keep a lot of money in our checking account, and there is a reason. Because when we see it in our checking account, we make different decisions. And so part of our trick to help us continue to execute is money comes in, it does not stay in the checking account more than 24 hours.
Interesting. Well, some people that I know, they like can't even stand having money in their retirement accounts. They like want to get at it. And it's like maybe their purpose isn't good enough. Maybe that's what the problem is. Like they're just like, well, I want to buy a house. I have this 401k. Can I use that money? And it's like, no, that's the plan that's for retirement, right? Is that what it is? Is it that they don't have a high enough purpose, or am I wrong? Is their number one
I,
purpose to buy a house and they should use their 401k for it?
well, I think that purpose, getting really clear on what that is that's that first step. That's what gets you there. Buying a house, my question there would always be, does it make sense? And so when 20 years ago, when we bought the house we live in, we were looking for the house, and we're going through that financing exercise you do with the mortgage company. And they came back and they said, oh, well, actually, you could buy a house, several times. We'll finance it for several times, if you want to buy a lot more expensive house. And I thought, well, that's, not, I don't think that's a very good decision on their part.
Yeah.
And, but the bottom line is, if you have that clarity of purpose, buying that house might be part of it, or it might not be. One of the things in my entire career, I got my first securities registration shock. I can't believe 30, 38, 37 and a half years ago. And I've seen people take money out of their retirement accounts to start businesses. I have never seen one of those businesses succeed. And I think there is this very distinct mindset with the first generation wealthy that the door swings one way. I put money in the retirement account and it never comes out until it's time to start that income stream. And they do that with non-retirement accounts too. And money goes in, and I can't afford to do that because I don't have the money other than in an investment account, and that investment account is not for today. And having that mentality that the door only swings one way is a very consistent mentality we see with first generation wealth.
Can anybody become first generation wealthy, or is there something like inherent about these people?
Anybody can, and it's not a matter of intelligence, it's not a matter of education, it's really a matter of mindset and that clarity about this is what I want to do. You don't even have to have a high income. In fact, over 75% of millionaires today never had an income, a six-figure income, never had an income of over $100,000. So we have a client from one of the poorest counties in the South, and she went to work um, for a national retailer. At the height of her career, she made a little over $110,000, 112, and is retired, has multi-million dollars. Can't believe every time we talk to her, I can't believe I did this. I'm just a country girl, but just that consistent investing every single month, door only swinging one way, and doing that for 35 years. And she makes more in retirement than she ever did working for a living.
What would you say to someone who is like, maybe feels like they're starting late? Like maybe they feel like they've been thinking about, their purpose and getting a plan and executing for like 10 years, but they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, a couple things. Getting clarity of purpose is great. There's a worksheet on our website. It's free download to help you self-navigate through that. The key is getting started. It's that old cliche, the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago. The second best time is right now. And getting started, making sure you start with something that you can be consistent on, having that financial shock absorber, uh, combination of cash reserves or emergency fund, maybe a line of credit, depending on the volatility of your cash flow. But having that financial shock absorber. So when you put money away in investments, it can stay there. You've got the financial wherewithal where there's a job change or you take a hit or have to replace the transmission and meet your deductible on the roof. All that happens in the same month. You've got the financial wherewithal to get through that. But it all starts with the power of purpose.
There is a question that goes around on social media a lot, and it is $1 million a lot of money? What do you think?
Well, it's a whole lot more than most Americans amass. I mean, most people don't get there and stay there. And so, from that standpoint, is it above average? I think it really goes to what is what is wealthy for you. One of the things we encourage is that with that power of plan, you come up with your own index. So you're not indexing yourself to your neighbors. You're not indexing yourself to the stock market. You're indexing yourself to what's important to you, building your own uh, index, the Lauren index. And when you get clarity around that and can manage that, then $1 million might be enough. We had a client who retired. He was an insurance adjuster and would come out and look at your situation and say, here's what the insurance company should pay for that. He was single uh, at the height of his career, and he retired in 2006. At the height of his career, the most he had made in any year was $36,000. when he retired, he had over $1 million, was able to get retirement income well in excess of anything he ever earned in a year working for a living, and was able to do what he wanted. And so for him, $1 million was, at that point, he was still saving money.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think social media, of course, is there's not everything on there you see is true. And some of the loudest
Right.
people, maybe the rich people are on there and they're the loudest ones. But I just wanted to get that point across that I think a lot of people think $1 million is not a lot of money, but it is so, so much more than most people ever have. I mean, what's the average retirement account that people have? It's like 200 when they retire or something. I mean, it's $1 million is a lot of money. And I'm like, why not? I mean, you got to hit $1 million no matter what, probably. Like at least that, like, let's aim for it and then you can go above it. But let's not argue about whether it's a lot of money or not.
And that's the thing. Anybody anybody can do it. And I think what creeps in is all these things that we need, that are really wants. And having that power of purpose helps us clarify, do I need this car? Do I need I can I tell you a really sad story?
Sure. I'm here for it.
Uh, so had these folks come in, and they it well, I need this, I need, and look, here's what we need to do. And I said, look, you are not, I don't know how you did this. Maybe you both saved money before you got married, but you're not making enough to pay your mortgage and pay your car payments and live. Well, we know we keep taking money out of savings, but we don't do anything different than anybody else in our neighborhood. And so I get that, but the reality is maybe you don't live. I mean, as cruel as that sounds, it's just the honest truth. You can't afford to live in that neighborhood.
Exactly. Switch
You
neighborhoods.
can't afford to drive that car. And so, it creates these interesting conversations. I have two boys, and favorite question of one of them was always, um, could could you buy a Lamborghini? And we talk about what's the difference between could and will. Could I could I buy this or that? That's one question. But even if we have the money, is that something that we're going to buy? And to help understand, there is a utility of money. How much pleasure do I get from this? And it's just easy to start thinking that these things that are wants, I want my kid to go to private school. I get that. Can you afford that? I want to live in this neighborhood. Can you afford that? And so one of the things we see really consistently, and the only way people can invest consistently over time, is to spend significantly less than they make. And I'm so thankful for some of the best advice I got when I first graduated from college, and I wasn't making squat. And the advice I got was, you have to learn to live on less than 70% of your take home pay. And if you can learn to live on 50% or less, you will be wealthy. Now, what that means is, for most of us, that means, well, I'm not going to be driving the nicest car. I'm not going to be wearing the nicest shoes. And we have to decide, what is the value there? And I'm not saying you shouldn't drive a nice car. Most of our clients do drive nice cars and have nice shoes. And those are all great things. The question is, are we living enough below our means so that we're able to take consistently and put it over in the storehouse?
Well, if your purpose is strong enough, it should make those decisions easier, right? Do I need this car? Let's say, do I need the BMW or will a Camry do? and what is getting me closer to my
Right.
goals and what is keeping me on track with my purpose. And I have found in my life that once I have my purpose strong enough, you can run any decision through it and it actually makes decision making quite easy.
Quite easy, yes. I think it was uh, Friedrich Nietzsche said something to the effect that if a person has a strong enough or clear enough why, they can endure almost any how. You
Hmm.
know, this is the why, this is the purpose. So how I get there, I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you, having that clear sense of purpose, using that as the filter or the framework to make a decision really makes that decision so easy.
And when you don't make the right decision according to your values, according to your purpose, according to your why, it feels bad. Like you know that
Right?
you did it.
Right.
I bought a BMW when I was like 27 and I hated it because I was like, this is not me. This is not right. This is not getting me, it's getting me physically where I want to go, but it's not getting me financially where I want to go. And I bought an Accord. I've had the Accord ever since, and it feels a lot better for me. Even as my financial situation has gone up and up, I have kept the Accord because it fits me and it fits what I want. And but it's interesting what I have always told people. They're like, well, I'll save more when I make more, and it's like you're say someone's making $60,000. Can they live off 50? The answer should be yes, because somebody's out there making 50, right? I mean,
Right.
somebody's making less than you living off of it. So you can do it too. And I think people just like forget that sometimes.
Yeah. And I think, Lauren, I think it's that mindset when you develop that mindset, then when that 60 goes to 70, instead of living off 50, now they're living off 55, but they're saving more. And so what happens as that ratchets up through their career and over time, those are the people who are able to really become wealthy. And it is really interesting to me how fluid uh, income and wealth is. There are several studies that show that if people inherit or make the money early in life and get to $1 million, very young in their 20s or 30s, that only about 3 in 10 maintain it.
Wow.
7 in 10 fall back down. And even when you get to the higher levels, at Deca millionaire to 10 million in net worth, you fast forward 10 years and uh, about 1 in 3 are no longer Deca millionaires. I mean, you look at the Forbes 400 list, the 400 wealthiest people in the US, and you look at the current list and look at a list from 10 years ago, and you see 44% of the people on that list are not on there anymore.
That's because they didn't have the right plan or the right execution, probably, right?
Well, and yes, and there are a few that passed away,
Sure.
but not 44% of them.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So at any level of wealth, making it is one thing, but keeping it, multiplying it, and enjoying it is something different. And we see it a lot with second generation wealth. They inherit something from their uncle or from their parents. And if there hasn't been, an active program of stewardship where they're a lot of times second gen wealth, they've already been saving and they have that mindset. And so when they inherit it, they're just ramping it up, exactly what their parents hoped they would do. And yet so many of them, that's not what happens.
Is there anything else you want to add, Greg, before we wrap up?
I want to say that this has been delightful, and I really appreciate what you do, Lauren, to make the world a better place.
Thank you for saying that. And why don't you let people know where they can find you and get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Our website is luken.pro. That's luken.pro. If you go to luken.pro/book, there are some resources there, to help you with that power of purpose, help you discover your financial origin story, and some other fun things.
Awesome. I also have your LinkedIn, which I will put in the show notes as well.
Oh,
Guys, you can
thanks.
follow me on Twitter X at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real, YouTube at Adulting is Easy. If you like this episode, I think you may also like episode 199, The Three Pillars of Prosperity. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Greg and I have made adulting a little easier for you.